Hello, everyone, and welcome to week 12 on evaluating online sources. This week, we'll continue to enhance our information retrieval skills by completing a second online library workshop called Is It Legit? Navigating the Misinformation Landscape. This workshop is special because it is a collaboration between our library technology chair, Jackie King, and a journalism and media studies professor named Sarah Bennett. Sarah Bennett is also the advisor for the student media outlet called El Dawn, right, otherwise known as the newspaper, here on campus. This workshop was intended to help introduce students to new language such as the infodemic, that helps describe where we stand in terms of the production of information over time. I mentioned another term during week 7 when we were talking about classification systems. You may remember in the week 7 introduction video, I talked about how the Dewey Decimal System and the Library of Congress classification systems were developed around the same time, right? This is the late 19th century, which came right after the Industrial Revolution, right? The Industrial Revolution gave us the printing press, which enabled us to create multiple copies of pieces of papers, brochures, leaflets, and books, right? With that new invention and that new innovation, the information landscape changed drastically. We are now at another pivotal moment in the history of the development of information in our world. And that's really what the infodemic refers to, right? So that will be defined in this workshop. You'll also hear more from our professors about how algorithms affect our daily lives. So if you don't already have a solid definition and understanding of what an algorithm is and how it works, you will have that by completing this workshop. Professors King and Bennett will also introduce you to the SIFT, S-I-F-T method. That is an acronym with each letter representing an important step in how we approach, assess, and process information. The S stands for stop, right? Which means even before consuming information, we need to consider if the source, the author, the website, the publisher, if they would fall under what we call an authority, right? Or a reputable source for that information. You can access this second workshop through the link on the assignment page for Module 12. You can also find these workshops on the library homepage under Instruction and Programs. Just click on Workshops, Online Workshops, and you'll find the link to Is It Legit? Then you'll see this page. If you're already enrolled, it will say go to the course. Otherwise, this is where you'll need to enroll in this course. It is a separate workshop, so you will need to enroll once again. Then once you do enroll, you'll see the course on your Canvas dashboard, and the tile looks like this. To complete this second workshop for week 12, you will need to complete all 3 parts with their corresponding quizzes, 1, 2, 3, and then score at least an 8.0 on the final comprehensive quiz. I do ask that you take a screenshot of those results from the quizzes and then upload that as your assignment submission. You may have noticed that this workshop is worth 40 points, which is a substantial amount of points and double last week's workshop. That's because this week's workshop is estimated to take around 3 to 4 hours to complete. When you take a look at the week 12 assignments, you may notice that it is a heavier week than last week. So I do highly recommend getting started on this workshop, your discussion, and the collection analysis assignment as early as possible. Now that you've practiced searching for books, articles, and internet sources, you'll be reflecting on your experience accessing materials in print and online for this week's discussion. Then you'll apply what you've learned about library mission statements, library collections, and searching the internet to the collection analysis assignment. I feel that the assignments this week really bring together a lot of the different things you've been learning from different units this semester. For the collection analysis assignment, you are asked to do a set of very specific tasks, okay? First, you need to identify a subject represented within a library collection of your choice. There's some examples provided on this page for your reference, but it should really be something that you're interested in. And I do highly recommend that you choose a subject that your dream library might collect around. That way, you can use some of the titles that you select for this assignment for populating your collections page for the final project. Once you've identified a subject of interest, then you need to access an existing library collection that may include titles on that subject. For example, I used gardening as an example subject that you could select. You're more likely to find books on gardening in a public library, right? Santa Ana College's Neely Library may not have as strong as a collection, and that's because we don't offer an academic program on gardening. Santa Ana College does offer programs in the arts, right? Specifically art history, and that's why you might be more successful finding books on something like the history of photography. So once you've identified your subject of interest and found a collection that collects on that subject, you're ready to move on to the second part of this assignment, which is identifying 5 core titles in your subject. There isn't necessarily an authority list on what core titles are. That really is up to you to make that determination. I do highlight one online source in your assignment that does provide book lists by subject. So at least there is this guide. And if you agree with some of the titles on these book lists, which is linked here, then feel free to use those as part of your list of core titles. Because core titles can be historic and canonical, right? They may be a little bit old or out of date. For this reason, I also ask you to explore 5 new titles in your subject published in the last 10 years, right? Because we want to make sure that our collections are current and up to date, in addition to representing the most foundational texts for a subject. It's this balance of historical, new, innovative research and information that we hope to provide to our community and ensure equitable access to through our collections. Once you complete the search for this total of 10 book titles, you will need to compile a list of 10 complete MLA citations for each of those book titles. I do provide an example of the citation, annotation, and justification for selection, which is required for every single one of these titles. As you can probably tell, that's quite a bit of work, right? But you do not need to read an entire source to be able to extract some of the main concepts or what the book is about. So I'm not asking you to read 10 books in their entirety. I'm asking you to identify the books and just describe what the main purpose of the book is and why it would be important for your dream library to collect that book. Next, part 2 is where you're going to analyze an existing collection and compare what you've deemed as core and new titles. Compare that to an existing library's collection. Okay, all of the instructions and reflection questions for part 2 are listed on this assignment, and the assignment is worth 60 points. This week, I'm also working on releasing the rest of the modules through week 16 to ensure that you have plenty of time to look ahead, prepare for the final project submission, and also get caught up with any missing work that you've been working on submitting. So that's pretty much all I have for you this week. Please reach out via Canvas inbox with any questions that you may have, and I'll see you soon. Bye.